Hola, my amigos. We're going to talk about how to properly structure your campaigns inside the Meta ad account. Now, this is coming from a conversation from our internal mentoring group, the D2C Dojo, where if you're probably feeling like some people are, like, what is the right setup? Because, some people saying this setup, some people saying this setup, and it gets quite exhausting because you're always kind of second guessing yourself on what is the right setup. So I'm going to walk you through the right setup, and I'm also going to show proof, especially documentation from Meta. So if you're feeling like, man, I just want to know what is the ideal setup, this is going to be the video for you. But if you're kind of chasing the next hack, then this isn't going to be the video for you, because this is based off the millions of spend that we do in our agency a month, and it works out pretty well. It's also backed by Meta and how they do it. And I think you're going to find this actually makes it really easy. And that's why I like this setup, because it makes running ads so much more simple so that you can put your attention on other more important things like the offer, the creative, and the landing page, and worry so much less on structure. So right now, there's still a lot of people who are running ads the old way. I mean, very classic 2019. And the harsh reality is, like, things have changed so much that it's not the most optimal way, because things are so much harder on Meta now, and things have to be so much more efficient. And what worked back in 2019 and 2020, just it doesn't work right now. It's not the most efficient way. I want to be very clear. Can you get results running, many campaigns and many ad sets and a bunch of different audience targeting and many different ads inside of ad set? You can get results like that, don't get me wrong, but is it the most efficient way? Because I don't know about you, but the brands that we work with, every dollar has to account for some kind of return on ad spend or some kind of return, right? And not only that, but every dollar is so precious because a lot of brands' margins are really thin right now. Not their product margins, but it's just gotten so much more expensive to run a business. And so things have to be just so much more efficient. So that's a big reason why we've really changed our philosophy. And also you're going to find that Meta is also catching on to confirm how we've changed it, that it's just, if you want to just make every dollar spread as far as possible, the way I'm going to show you is that better way. So what's actually happening right now, and this is an example of a brand that just came to us, is you have the old way where a lot of people, they have many different campaigns. They'll have brand awareness, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, post-purchase funnel. They'll have campaigns just for like video views and campaigns for audience farming. And it's quite, one, exhausting, but then number two, and frankly, it's just very inefficient. And so looking inside this ad account of this brand that came to us, they have all these different campaigns, and it's really hard to understand what is actually driving net incrementality to my business. And when you click inside of one of those campaigns, they have just an insane amount of audience testing. Now, I'm going to share in this video why that's actually not the most efficient way, but you're probably going to get an understanding of that this is not the right way. It looks like they have no idea what they're doing. They're just completely guessing, but there's a better way to do these things. So what is that better way? So what I'm sharing with you is actually a doc that Meta has for people based off of their engineering team and the tests that they've done. Now, typically, unfortunately, when it comes to Meta, is they're always late in giving the best practices. Now, we've been doing these best practices for well over a year now. It's just Meta, they're bigger and they're slower, and they just take time to update those. But Meta, they're just bigger and slower, and they just take a lot of time to update those best practices. But what I really like is because some time ago, we were actually talking to Meta engineers, and they were telling us what they were seeing well over a year ago and helping us better understand how we can help our brands be more efficient with their ad dollars. And it just so happens that now they're going out and they're publishing it. So what are some of the recommendations? The first one is combining ad sets. Now, Meta doesn't give a lot of guardrails on combining ad sets, but the main point here to understand is this is a big case for consolidation. We're going to talk about more of this later on this video, but Meta rep told us this over a year ago, that the brands who are getting the most efficient use of their ad spend have the most consolidated account structure at all times inside their ad account. So that's the fewest amount of campaigns that are absolutely required to hit the business objectives that you need, and the fewest amount of ad sets required to hit those business objectives as well. And they say that those brands that do this, that have the most amount of budget, have the most stability, and they also have the least amount of volatility. And I talked about this a lot on this channel. So let's just talk about the case for consolidation now that we're here. So here's a big case for consolidation. In all of our testing experience and spending a crap ton of money every single month, we have found that the brands that can keep themselves in a consolidated account structure have the least amount of volatility, or another word is most amount of stability. And so what that allows us to do, it allows you to do many things. Number one, it allows your ad dollars to be the most efficient as possible. Number two, it also allows you to not second guess what is the right campaign structure. I'm going to show you in this video how we structure our campaigns at the moment in ad sets. But the biggest thing is you just have more data. And more data, more signal. What that allows you to do is you get out of the learning phase faster. A big part of having consolidated account structure is you have the most amount of data going through the fewest amount of variables. What this allows you to do is, one, get out of the learning phase faster, and it also allows you to do is have tighter, what I call correlation, to actually driving an impact for your business. For example, let's say you have $1,000 that you can spend on ads every single day. That's a lot of money, but let's say it's $1,000. If you take that $1,000 and you have it spread across 7 different campaigns and many different ad sets within those campaigns, depending on the ad type, if it's ABO, for example, or ad set budget optimization, what that means is it's spread so thin. How do you actually know which campaigns and ad sets is actually driving the net incremental impact on your business? Whereas a consolidated account structure, let's say you take that same $1,000 spread across 3 campaigns, and inside those campaigns is only 3 ad sets. Now you only have 3 main campaign variables to contend with versus the previous example where you may have upwards of 7 to 14. It becomes a lot more convoluted and harder to see that true impact, which goes to the next point. Having a consolidated account structure gives you massive opportunities and efficiencies so that you don't have auction overlap and or audience overlap. So what is auction overlap? Well, auction overlap is the likelihood of your campaigns or whatever audience you're targeting overlapping and competing with itself. So for example, on that same example, if you're doing a $1,000 a day budget and you're doing interest targeting, you have one interest that's targeting coffee lovers, another interest is targeting Starbucks lovers, another interest is targeting espresso. There's a real case where there's going to be some amount of overlap between those different targeting variables. And because you're testing all those different campaigns, audiences, and whatever, you can actually drive up the cost and the CPM of the targeting. So what that means is you can actually drive up the cost of the targeting because you have separate campaigns targeting the same pockets of people, just different interests on a different side of the same coin, and it can actually drive up the CPM cost. And now also the case with auction overlap is what that means is you're trying to force Meta to target the same types of people, and because they're in separate campaigns, Meta, regardless of if it drives up your costs or not, is going to try to do what you tell it to do. Whereas a more simple structure would be if you consolidated all of that down, like Meta explains, it will allow you to have your dollars be much more efficient and frankly cheaper and more stable. And that's a big reason why account consolidation structures typically go with very big audiences. So for us, we either go with a very broad, completely broad minimal exclusions, or very, very big like lookalikes and or an interest, but typically it's mostly broad, because what that does is it eliminates ever having to worry about auction overlap or audience overlap, because we have so much data going through so few campaigns or ad sets that we can give over that control to Meta, and we never have to worry about overlap of audiences or auction at all. So we don't have to worry about, are we competing against ourselves? Instead, all we have to worry about now is how can I compete against my competitors who are also bidding on the same customers, which is a whole separate problem. And another big reason why I like this is you get to learn so much faster. For example, if you have that same example, $1,000 a day, and you have it across 7 different campaigns, and then those campaigns have 7 different ads, unique different ads, that's 49 possible variables. It may take you several weeks before you actually have any amount of data to make a judgment call. Whereas when you cut that down, and instead you have a lot of data going through very few campaigns and fewer ads, you can move so much faster, which is a really great time to bring up Meta's other point, and that's around ads. So they actually recommend that you have no more than 6 creatives per ad set. Now, these are unique ads. So for example, if you are going to be having one creative, but you want to test different pieces of copy, like in the caption or the headline, you can actually use Meta's dynamic capability and add different texts, but keep it the same unique ad. That's what I would recommend. But if you're going to test unique different creatives, then obviously that's a net new creative. So what you want to do here is just don't test everything at once, just testing in batches of 6. And then once you have the 6 ads and you test those over a few days, once you identify the winner, so if it's 2 out of 6 ads, you can kill the other 4, keep the 2, and then add the next batch of 4 in there. And that goes into ad creative. So what Meta recommends is when you're using a consolidated account structure is to also keep the number of ads to a minimum as well. So what that means is they recommend no more than 6 ads per ad set. So following our structure, which I'll show you in a few moments, we try to keep to at least 6 ads per ad set or less. Now, why this is helpful is because Meta engineers have said that the fewer amount of variables you are giving Meta, the more stability you're going to have less volatility, and potentially more constant and maybe even cheaper CPAs. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to guarantee cheap CPAs or cost per purchase, but it helps to ensure, because Meta, it's like, even though it uses AI and machine learning, think of it like a person, meaning if you told me to do something and you gave me very, very few instructions, but very clear instructions, it'll be much more easy for me to follow through on it. But if you came to me and said, hey, I need you to do this thing, but you gave me 30 to 50 instructions, how efficient are you going to be at following all those instructions? Whereas following fewer instructions, kind of the same thing. And that's why keeping the number of variables to a minimum. So fewest amount of campaigns possible, fewest amount of ad sets possible, and fewest amount of ads possible. So what that means is if you have more than 6 ads that you want to test, just test 6 at a time. And then over the next few days, once you determine which of those 6 are proven to be winners and which ones are proven to be losers, kill the losers, keep the winners, and then add in another batch of creatives, but still keep it to that 6. You'll see how we do this in a second, but we have found this to be quite helpful. And also we found it to be significantly more stable. And that's a big reason why we scale. And if you go back through this channel, if you look at all the different examples of brands that we've scaled, it was very few campaigns, very few ad sets, and very few ads. It was a lot of ads we tested, but really it was off the back of a few ads, but we always kept the number of ads in those ad sets to a minimum. Okay, so let's talk about our campaign structure. So this is our standard campaign structure. We always have at minimum 2 campaigns. One campaign is a testing environment, and another campaign is a scaling environment. And I've made many videos about this before, but this is the optimal setup. And you'll see in a few real examples here in a second how you can expand on this if you need to, but everything starts with this core, and that's why we call it core. So the core testing campaign is our core campaign that we use just for the testing environment of creative, of ads, where inside of that campaign, we use different ad sets where we have new batches of creative. Another way to think about it is a new theme of creatives. So let's say, for example, I have an eyelash brand, and in that eyelash brand, I have one theme around influencers. And so I take a batch of influencer creative, no more than 3 ads, put it in an ad set. And then I have another theme around demonstration videos. Okay. That is also going to be a batch test where I put those creatives in there to where each ad set would be that batch or that theme. Okay. And then I use that ad set environment to determine which ones are winners. And based off whichever ads hit the CPAs that I need to hit, then I graduate that into a scaling campaign. But in that scaling campaign, we try to have no more than 6 ads live at a given time. So if, for example, we already have 6 ads in the scaling campaign hitting targets, yay, that's a great thing. Then what we do is we just hold those other winning ads that we tested off to the side, ready to rock and roll if and when we need it, and we will need it eventually. So we just keep that process up going. But if we have proven that some ads inside the scaling campaign are no longer hitting the right CPAs, well, then now we have ads ready to rock and roll. And we just keep doing this. So feel free to go and watch the other video I made on how we make 9,000 ads in a year for our brands that goes into depth around our creative sprint process. But we're always in this process with our brands of making new creative. So what that means is at any point in time, we always have batch tests inside the testing campaign where we're testing new creative. Now, what I do want to make sure it's really important to comment here is budget allocation is a big deal when you're using this setup. So for us, we want no more than 20% of our monthly budget going into testing. Unless the ad account and the brand's kind of on fire and nothing's working, then you have to ignore that because you just have to test more frequently and faster. But if things are going fairly stable, we don't want any more budget than 20%, ideally 10 to 15% if you can get away with it, because the philosophy here is you want the most amount of data going through the fewest amount of campaigns to get stability. So let's go back to this real quick. More data, more signal. If I have most of my budget only going through campaigns and ads that have proven to be winners, what that means is I can scale so much more aggressively. We have a brand right now that's spending $20,000 a day following this structure because majority of the budget is only going through the ads that have proven to be winners at scale, one campaign, one ad set. And so there's so much data going through that campaign, that ad set, that it's incredibly stable. This brand, they sell like a $50 product, and we've been getting $28 CPAs at that budget for the last 3 months because it has so much rich data at this point. Okay, so let's walk through a real example. So what does this look like? So for example, this is a brand right now where we have our core campaign setup, but then when we have other business objectives, we will do what's called a bolt-on campaign. Now, the bolt-on campaign is when you have either a new product drop or a sale specific to that time period, or for whatever reason that brand wants you to push several different products at the same time. We will have core campaigns and it'll have bolt-on campaigns. So let's walk through this account. So this account, we had a new product launch. Now this product launch went so well, they went and they bought more inventory. And so we have a bolt-on campaign just for that new product line, and that's it. Then we have the core testing campaign. So this is for our evergreen, just constantly testing new ads. So inside of that campaign, we just have ad sets, just doing our batch tests. That's it. And then we have another campaign, a core scaling campaign on another evergreen product. And then we have a third core scaling campaign on a third evergreen product. So how it looks in this account, which is quite simple, is we have campaigns specific to business objectives. Now the business objectives for this business is they have three main product lines: product line 1, product line 2, and then this third one that they just launched. So what that means is we have a very consolidated account structure. We have core scaling campaign, broad ad set, and then no more than 6 creatives inside of that ad set. But then we have a testing campaign where we're always testing creative. And so when one becomes a winner, we then roll it into the scaling campaign. Now I made another video showing this in detail, but what this allows us to do, it allows us to see specifically how much money we've spent on one product line, and then the back end of Shopify, how much money that product line has made us. And for this brand, majority of their marketing spend is just on Meta. And so it gives you a really great return on investment of can I spend more money on this product line because of the margins? And so because each product has different margins, we also get to see what's the gross profit and net profit per each campaign, as well, including the Shopify backend of sales. And that's why we like to do it, because by having each business objective, or if you want product or product line, its own campaign, now you can actually do return on ad spend per product category, which is massive for us. So that campaign structure is serving us extremely well at the moment. It follows the Meta's best practices. And I used to be one where I would kind of go against whatever Meta says. I'm gonna do the opposite because they just want more money. But I've kind of come full circle where if Meta's recommending something, their interest is actually, they want to help everyone make more money, because the more money you're making, the more you're going to spend logically. And so I don't follow all their best practices, especially around like ASC campaigns. We don't run that yet because there's some issues with it in terms of its ability to keep to incremental new sales. But for the most part, we're running Meta's campaign structure very closely, and it's giving us amazing success. I hope you guys can try it as well. And by the way, if you like learnings like this and you like ad account breakdowns, every single week inside of our mentoring group, we actually do live ad account reviews where we look at ad account structure, ad account creative, and a bunch of other advanced growth marketing strategies that we do for brands. It is growing very quickly. We have brands ranging from making $15,000 a month to $400,000 a month. We had some successes even last week where a guy made some tweaks and he made an additional $6,000 in 7 days. So really great win. So if you want wins like that, check the link, watch the video, and I'd love to see you on the inside.